All right, here we go. We are going to record. So does everybody know the number of their group? If so, would the person chosen to represent group one please speak? And you could say where you're from, and you could say where the other students who spoke were from. So that would be great. Go ahead.
I was in group one, and the other people that spoke was mainly Alicia, and we're both from America, but I'm from Texas, and she's from Arkansas, I assume. And then we also had Fahima, and I don't remember the other person that was in there. They didn't say anything. So I don't remember which name.
Did
But
you run out of time?
No, I think they were having like internet problems, like connection problems. They just couldn't get their input in. But I like one thing that I noticed from just when we were in groups last time I think it was Brooknon that she asked me about how it is here with the pandemic, and I said how like there's rules for social distancing, but no one follows them. She said they have the same problem in Bangladesh, I think. And I think it's funny, like it shows that I guess it's just like human nature to not want to socially distance, considering we're having these same problems across and we're across the world from each other. And then another thing that I pointed out um, was how when you were speaking last time about how privileged you are, but I don't know if it was in this last class or other classes I've taken with you where you spoke about like just like the problems you had as being like a woman going into academia. I think it points out that even like the most privileged of women have been like negatively affected by like our male centered world. But then Alicia said that she couldn't think of a way that the patriarchy has hindered her. So maybe I'm not correct, but that was just what came to me. And then Alicia also pointed out just like how she was uh I don't want to say in shock, but I forgot what to write about, but I guess amazed by like the amount of obstacles that our classmates from other parts of the world, now some of them have had to overcome just to, I guess, like get to this point. But that was all we had.
Okay, good. So Fahima, did the other two in the group, is there anything you want to say right now? Okay, so if you're having internet connection problems, that's not your fault. So we'll just keep moving on, but okay, group two, who was the speaker?
Hello, Professor.
Okay.
Professor, but I think we got a wrong instruction and we discussed something else.
So what did you discuss? The reading for today?
We discussed the reading that you sent in the Google Classroom.
No, that's fine. It was actually both.
Oh, okay. But you sent us 3 documents, right? And in the one of them in introduction document that a woman have a patient and she is a philosophy teacher of philosophy. And I was wondering how if someone doesn't have any passion, like have a strong passion in life. Because when I read that document, I think it's such a good feeling to have a passion because you you have a goals in life. You have something to do, like you have something that you like to do. But how if someone doesn't have any passion, like they just trying to live when of course you want to be the number one, but see that also feels like doesn't need to work that hard to be the number one.
Okay, well, actually, you don't have to be competitive, right?
Mm.
It's not a competition. It's just fulfilling some sense of purpose. Like if you created access for women who were going to get into arranged marriages when they were really young, and if you you started an organization where they knew they could come and get protected from that, right? They wouldn't have to, just something like that. That's not a competitive thing, right? That's just you're carving out a more just society, like you're creating an institution that wasn't there before. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And
Ma-
also,
Ma'am,
oh yeah, go ahead.
ma'am, we are also in the group too, so we were also discussing the same thing. So, ma'am, how could be that possible? Like each and single person could have a like passion, like so. If women had the passion before her marriage, huh? But after her marriage, he like missed out her passion. Like, how could be that possible? How many? I just want to know. We just want to know that actually. We all from group two.
Yeah, actually, this is a big deal for you and your generation. Until in my society, it was, all the way through the 1950s, pretty much. Marriage and family was kind of the first priority. So the law schools had 5% women, the medical schools had 5% when I was in college. That's not, that long ago. And so it's only been since then that women have either not gotten married and fulfilled some other sense of purpose, or the big issue is juggling marriage and children and careers, right? Or doing volunteer work. I mean, it doesn't have to be a career, but even if you did volunteer work, you'd gravitate towards some kinds of volunteer work rather than others. The students, one of them said her mother was just, she loved kids. And so she took care of all her cousins, and just something like that is how you identify a woman's sort of sacred passion, that within the parameters of what she's got, what does she gravitate toward? But all of you, who have come to liberal arts schools, the point of liberal arts schools is to get exposed to all these different disciplines and all these different ways of understanding life. And so I think all of you, I think you should picture yourself as juggling, marriage, children, and career in some way, having a more complicated life than the previous women, most women before you. That's true, for me, but I think it's pretty true across the board, especially once you get to AUW. Does that make sense?
Yes, Professor, thank you. We got it right now.
Right. So in this class, I want you, you envision yourself. You envision a future that's complicated, but fulfilling, right? Meaningful. Who else was in that group?
Professor, in the inbox, Alicia has sent message that she want to join again. Can you give her permission? Because she is having audio problem.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you. I have to keep, be, diligent about constantly checking that.
Thank you. I joined on my tablet, but something was messed up, so nobody could hear me. So I got on my computer.
Okay, good. So what about anybody else from group 2? Okay, what about group 3?
Hello, Professor. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so actually in my group, we all agree that from the reading, we can understand that our society is much like male dominated, and even in mythology, women are like constantly raped by men and also emotionally abused by men. And it is kind of a very normal thing in like mythology, but actually it's like abnormal. And also we believe that one of the solution to solve this is through education in modern life, like to educate women and also to empower them, and also like to empower other people to treat like each other better, like in a more fair community. We think so. And also we believe that learning myth can help us to understand the pattern of like lifestyle, like how people in the past, like back to the original days, like had thought and believed in. So from that we can like take more action based on that. And also from the reading we can see one detail that Carl Jung, like the father of psychologists, like in the reading, has some of the sexist biases when interpreting the Greek mythology. So we are also kind of very curious, like in which ways, because actually we haven't really read his interpretation, and he was kind of very famous in psychology. So we are really curious, like how and in which way did he like insert his bias in interpreting. So yeah, it's all I want to say. Yes.
Anybody else from that group?
Yes, Professor. Actually, when we read the myth, and through the myth, we can see how their lifestyle, how they leaded their life, and how they improve. Actually, so we can differentiate through their lifestyle and between our lifestyle. We can understand how was their limitation. So we can see one limitation was the male domination and the abuse of women. So as a student of Asian University for Women, obviously I am not supporting it. And we should, what we should do is we should change the social structure actually. And to change the social structure, we should change our mind, mentality. And for this, education is obviously needed. So actually, we should change our thinking with each other together. That's the can be the solution. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, group 4. Anybody? There were 4 groups, I think. Anybody from group 4? All right, anybody who hasn't spoken yet? Okay, now, did you get enough time? That's
Hello, Professor. May I talk?
sure.
This is Fahima Sultani. I'm very sorry because my internet connection was not stable and I got disconnected even from the class.
Okay.
From the book, as I saw, many all women in the true history, as we see in the past, they were like they were not treated as they had to be treated, and I it to the goddesses of Greece and all these, but I see the importance of myths and these goddesses in in today's life, and I think that the only way that we can uh, that we can overcome these
Did you get cut off, Fahima? I think
that we can overcome these all circumstances is that to educate women and to let them know how to express their feelings, their thoughts to society.
okay. All right. Anybody else before so I will say that Rossi was talk to me.
We have to know how to make choices every day, and
Okay, good.
to move whose citizens are actually getting human capacities.
Okay, yeah, I do think being deliberate, right? And I did make a video about my own experiences and I think it finally got posted. So I don't want to talk about that a lot, but it's just, you get the idea that even someone who's privileged, I ran into the wounding, right, of all the different goddesses. I got wounded by them, by men in those passions. And so, you know, I started to be aware of patriarchy. Like there were a lot of people that told me I was stupid, ugly, lazy, a bad wife. Let's see, what else? A bad mother. I mean, I've been there, guys. And so, so you just have to, I don't want my students to have to go through that. That's part of it. I really don't want them. I wish that I could protect them from it, but the number one thing is when you can't, don't blame yourself, right? I did that. I internalized it. If I just work harder, if I just do this, if I just do that, you know, I can fix it. I can fix it. Well, you can't. Like it's a setup. You're kind of designed not to be good enough. So that's a problem. The way that I articulated it in that video was related to a different class I teach because it was just the concepts instead of the 7 goddesses where you use your imagination and you project your emotions. And so you're actually educating your emotions, coming to know your emotions. It's more the detached observer and it's data, okay? Not always, but sexuality, like what do people think about masculinity and femininity, right? And those are definitions. I mean, people live them out. But that in a class, those are the categories. There's categories like the story of Adam and Eve, the creation story, the origin story. We're going to do Hesiod's origin story. But before that, we're going to do the goddesses of Crete and their story. And it's totally different. But I thought I would just give you an example. I think all of you probably know the Adam and Eve story. I hope that some of you are, I know some of you are Muslim, but I'm sure, I hope some of you are just humanist or maybe naturalist or Hindu, Buddhist, because you come from countries like that. So when it's Hindu, it's karma, creating good karma. When it's Buddhism, it's maintaining, you know, balance of mind, liberation from all these, you know, obstacles. But the Adam and Eve story is interpreted differently, and there's lots of different interpretations. But what I want to do is, if somebody had that in their head, there's another society, an indigenous society, where their creation story was, there was a tree, the tree of life, okay? That was originally, there was just this tree. And the deity broke off some bark and planted it in the ground. And one piece of bark became a man and one became a woman. And the woman woke up first and she tickled the man awake. All right. Now, if you had that as your creation story, I think you would think differently. Does that make sense? It's just, you realize how deeply embedded that story is in the culture. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but it's just interesting to think how these stories get embedded into the culture and that they repeat. People just end up following these patterns of life without even consciously being aware of it. And I ran into that a lot. So there was the origin story, notions of masculine and feminine, notions of marriage. Is it unequal or equal? How do you raise your children? Who's responsible for the kids coming out okay? Who does the double shift if women work? What about education? Are the stories that are told, is the history actually male and female, or is it all a history about guys? Is it all about power and money rather than about family systems and community building, right? How is the history biased? How is the poetry that you read biased? How are the essays that you read biased? How are the way that you read them, okay? So hyper analytic, cutting things apart, attacking other people, competing with them, who has the best interpretation of, Achilles or something. That's a very different, the whole educational process is different if it's competitive and adversarial or cooperative and synthetic, where when people make a comment, they add, right? Everybody's just adding. So you get a bigger and bigger view as opposed to cutting each other down and somebody wins. So the educational system can be set up that way. Again, all of you are in a liberal arts school, and so you take science, math, social science, humanities. So it's up to you to think about, first of all, which one attracts you more, business, economics, and also, even if it doesn't attract you, just learning how to think that way, learning that other people think that way, but also learning that that's part of the culture. Everything is part of the culture. So these myths are not, this is not a normal education. So Rossi said, I'm not used to this. I'm like, yeah, I know you're not. The way I got into this is I got kicked out of graduate school because I wasn't going fast enough, because I was taking care of my children, because the birth control companies lied to me about how effective the birth control was, because, all this stuff. So, I got kicked out, and so I had some time just to read. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had 3 kids. I had no idea how we were going to provide for them. But I had time, and then I started reading stuff about patriarchy. Like, oh, anyway. So this isn't learning how to read these stories, not as strange, pre-scientific, scientifically false stories, but as written by poets. Poets recognize patterns, right? So they go through life and they look at other people and they think about human affairs. And after a while they go, oh, this is a pattern and it's based on the human condition and it's going to repeat itself. Every generation is going to have to deal with this. It'll be a little different context, right? Some things will be similar, some things will be different. So then Rossi said, right after she said, I'm not used to this, she said, I realized how relatable I am to the goddesses. So I hope that you can figure out that you can relate to this, that everybody has a life journey and they have their struggles and their successes, and everyone has work that they do to make the world a better place. And I think it doesn't have to be a high-powered career. It can be. but it can be, you know, making sure children are taken care of. It can be a lot of different things. That's why the goddesses represent a lot of different contributions. She said, all I've done so far with my life is study, right? Maybe volunteer a little bit, which is fine. It's just that each of those passions can also involve volunteer work. And so just to volunteer is probably not your best contribution. Probably if you find out what you really are driven by and you get really good at it, that'll probably be your best way to do volunteer work also. Let's see. And then many of you are first generation college. She said none of my family's been to college, and she's been surrounded by educated men, right? So a lot of you, the higher educated people around you have been men. So the AUW campus is a unique culture. She said, I have a sense of hope to do something more with my life. This is not to denigrate being a wife and mother. It's just that modern medicine has given us much longer life trajectories. People used to spend most of their adult life just raising a couple kids and keeping them alive. And that's not true anymore. As a matter of fact, it's much better. One reason AUW got funding was that there's so much evidence that if women are given an education and if they're given trust, they can trust that if they have just a couple kids, the kids will live and they'll get educated and they'll thrive, then they won't have a lot of kids. But right now, a lot of really poor women have a lot of kids because, you know, some are going to die. Somebody's got to take care of them in their old age. So I did ask my students, you know, how many of you plan on having just a couple kids rather? And one woman from Afghanistan told me that everybody in her parents' generation had a lot of kids and some of them died, her own family. I think they had 9 and 2 of them had died already, but she doesn't plan on having that many kids. So that's why if you plan on having fewer and you're going to live a long time, it's perfectly reasonable it's good for you to set up some kind of way of thinking about your life that goes beyond marriage and family. And I want to emphasize, I'm not denigrating that. I gave up my PhD program to take care of my daughter. So my daughter was showing signs of suffering because I was under too much stress. And the graduate school forced me to choose. They didn't give me an extension and they were a big feminist school. And the dean said, I'm so proud of you of choosing your family over your career. So then I had nothing and 3 kids, but that's okay. I still chose my daughter. I never looked back. So I don't want women, it's very important that women don't undermine each other. Some of them are naturally more career oriented. Some of them are naturally more home oriented. Everybody just has to affirm the others because women can get into these mommy wars. They can start undermining each other, and that's really bad. That's a typical way to oppress any sort of group of people. You get them to beat up on each other. So that's important to me that you don't do that. Let's see. And then on the campus, she said, when at the AUW campus, she's surrounded by educated women with a sense of purpose. And that is true among the administrators, the faculty, and it's like a family. So it is supposed to be like a second family. And I assume it is what your family wants. Like your family wants you to expand your idea of what's possible. And then she says, and this is, again, she says back home, she hears a lot of negative thoughts that I should just get married and have kids and not be so ambitious or something. That's what Kamala Harris, right? She got criticized for being too ambitious. Yeah, really.
Wants a dollar to get me a drink and snack. It's like how
Oh, okay, Alyssa, why don't you mute yourself, Alicia? Thanks. Anyway, so then she said that some women, if they get into marriages and they're afraid of getting divorced because they're trapped and they're afraid of the future. So, so really AUW was designed to move everybody forward. And Lyon College also, the atmosphere is different because it's co-ed, but they allowed women into that school way, way before, I think even the Ivy League schools did. So they were very progressive about women a long time ago. So both of these campuses really want to promote the equality of women, equal education, and then equal access to the jobs and careers. Now, does anybody want to, I'll just stop for a minute. Any questions or comments? Because I'm going to put you back into groups again, right? And then toward the end, okay, I'll make clear to all of you what the assignment would be. That you came to class today with 3 points you wanted to make, and then you met in groups and you write down 2 or 3 points you learned from the other ones. And then if you want to, some other points you learned from the big group, the group leaders, or from me. And then at the end, you just say, okay, what's my takeaway from that class for what I might include in my final about the legacy? How did this class move the needle, right? Expand my mind in some way that I might include. Now, you might not because something else will come up, but just sort of what's my takeaway so that the classes just don't start to blend together. You just sort of have some final say in your own mind. And then you can look back and say, oh, I used to think that, now I think that. You get to know your own mind. All right. Let's see. So the first chapter was, it was mostly about, I think we ended up talking mostly about that. The other thing I learned from my own experiences was that my experiences aren't just about me, they're patterns, right? So I could step back and I could say, gee, every thoughtful person has felt this way. Or I can understand why people believe things that I didn't used to understand, why people believe certain things or why they choose certain things. Suddenly you start to have a lot more empathy. So, I mean, I could partly do that. Well, what happened to me is in high school, I started thinking and I just felt like a Martian from another planet and nobody thought like me. And so it was hard because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know I was a type, that it was normal for certain people to be like me. I couldn't figure out, why aren't people thoughtful? Why are people superficial? Well, they aren't, they have their own, they're very concerned about other things, and all those things are important. So when I read over time, I read Plato. That's how I got into this. First Plato and Aristotle, and then, to understand him, you have to go back here, and then you have to go back here. So gradually, I started to understand what it is those people saw or understood that they wanted to communicate to posterity to pass on the wisdom that they'd gained about life, right? And so the way I see myself is the mediator between really great minds and great literature and young minds, right? People just being introduced to it. So I hope, that by the end of the class, you'll be able to put on your little goddess's glasses and see the world that way. But that's true of every class you take. You take a social science class. I mean, I was looking over the titles of the core classes and I thought, oh, I'd love to take all those classes because they all teach you to see life through a different lens or to look at biology or chemistry. I mean, all of those things are truly fascinating. All right, so the next thing I wanted to go over was the relation between religion and science, okay? She said on page 7 that it was a terrible mistake in the Enlightenment to split religion from science because mythology isn't just bad science, right? And then on the other hand, in the Enlightenment, there was a belief that the psyche is a blank slate and we can literally use science and social science to remold it like clay, and where people aren't going to be bad anymore. We're not going to have greed or violence, or we're not going to have any of those bad things. And that has not worked. That was a mistake, I think. But I wrote a book in response to a very well-known neuroscientist today. He wrote it in 2003, and he was his research was based on how chemistry works that led to the creation of opioids and serotonin and dopamine and all that stuff. But he says in his book that he thinks neuroscience has given humanity the tools for social engineering to cure once and for all, to change the playing field in relationship to pain, depression, violence, and addiction. And I was just like, Mr. Damasio, you must be crazy, right? So what's happened? We have all these people dying from opioid addiction because he didn't think about, well, if stuff is that addictive, you're going to have laws about, you're going to have to really monitor this stuff, and you're going to have to be really careful about people that make a lot of money selling this stuff. And he was just totally oblivious. And so he was just like the Enlightenment thinkers, that they thought science will change the world forever for good. And social science will be able to structure the psyche forever for good. And that is not true. And so the myths really have something to say. Now, what I wanted you to get into groups about what you would call your worldview at this point. It might be religion, it might be humanism, it might be Confucianism, it might be Hindu, Buddhist. So I'm just going to throw you into groups, and you can talk about your religious tradition or your ethical tradition, and then how that links to science. And one foundational aspect of liberal education is the union of however you understand flourishing, virtue, justice, with science and social science. They're all supposed to be integrated. And so whatever you came to school with, and then what you envision as maybe how you could integrate those by the time you graduate. So I'm going to put you into groups, breakout rooms on that. let's see. Oh, open all rooms. There we go. Why don't, are you in? Okay. I'm going to move you around a bit here. Good grief, we got too many. Okay, what have we got here? So a lot of you haven't joined yet. Yep. Hmm. Let's see. Oh, this one's full. Okay, move this one over to 3. Um, um, all right, so put her. Oops. Okay, so let's see. Jareen. Okay, so you guys want to talk to me at all, or are you in a group?
I'm not in a group.
You're not?
No, it says that you,
Oh,
me, and
okay,
2 others are still in the main room.
okay, sorry. Okay, there you go. All right. Okay, so Jareem? Okay. Right. Yeah. Oh, Jareen, are you there? Oops. Jareen, did you want to talk to me? Oh, maybe she's got connection issues. Possible.
women right. So in Buddhism, we don't have these kind of things. We are like same. We don't like people, Buddhist people like my fathers. They don't oppress my rights, and they will allow me to wear whatever I can, and they will allow me to go wherever I can. So yeah.
That's true. But like in Muslim religion, mostly mostly the women are discriminated from their rights, and they can't
Yeah.
do whatever you want. Though the situation of Bangladesh is changing.
Hi, Rossi.
Hi, Professor.
I'll try to
I lost I lost my connection for a long time and it keeps connecting.
Yeah, okay, that's all right. You're in room 3, I think.
Yes, Professor.
Okay. Well, I appreciated your comments. They were good.
Rahima, can you hear me?
I think she's disconnected. That's why she's not able to speak.
Yeah,
But it's showing that she's connected. I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, let's let's conclude our ideas.
Okay. We
I don't think it's working.
Okay. You could just stay here. I'm going to go to the different breakout rooms for a minute and then it'll be fine. We'll get it
Okay.
together. No problem.
I see.
Right?
True, true. Yeah, I can understand it.
Yeah, so it has a cross between religion and science.
Yes.
Because
Let's see, is there a 4? Yeah, okay.
So whether it be the Crusades or whether it be the wars fought between religion was a way to kind of differentiate each other in a community. So how religion came into existence was basically to kind of instill that okay, us versus them kind of a culture. So in today's context, it does bring a sense of belonging, um, regardless of whatever community you belong to. What so yeah, I agree with Louis Wong's opinion about how religion unites community in that aspect.
All right, so.
You know what's funny, Professor? I just want to bring this up. Actually, I came to in the royal part, but it's my cousin's wedding morning. Someone mentioned, "Are you not married?" And I was like sick, and I don't even know how to respond.
Professor, it's a very philosophical matter.
Okay, good. So why don't people report in for a minute on what their group covered? Everybody have
We
a
have to,
report?
yes, Professor, can you hear me?
Yep.
That what we have to say, what the group we discussed in the group?
Yep, group 1.
Khadija,
Group 2, Fahima.
you're going to talk?
If you are breaking up, we can just move on to group 2. Okay, group 3.
Yes, we are group 2.
Okay, go ahead.
Khadija, are you going to talk or should I talk?
Okay.
Fahima, you should not talk because your internet is so poor. Like we cannot like have. Let Khatija speak, please.
Okay. Who's going to speak?
Okay, Professor. We talked about the relation between science and the science and their religion, that how they are related to each other, and as we talked in the group that some things, as we are Muslim, something and some like whiskey and some things is prohibited in our religion as well, but then it proved by science as well that it's not healthy and that you should not drink, and but the science is more logical than religious belief, like mm, in the religion people are believed, just it's not proven by scientists, but then the science, it is logical and it has some idea and proof that you should not drink or you should not do these things. That's why that it's a very strong relationship between religion and science.
Okay.
Can I speak also?
Sure.
We're in the
Yeah, the
same group.
things that
We were,
are proven
sorry,
by religion that they are not there.
Professor, who is speaking?
It's cutting up, Fahima, I think.
Can I
They are bad
speak,
or they are
Professor?
good. So now
Okay, so Fahima, I think that it just doesn't.
they are accepted by science too. For example, or it's very logical. It was just prohibited, but now nowadays it is proven logically by science. and scientists also accept and
Okay,
accept.
I think we're just gonna have to move on to group
Yes,
3.
Professor,
Yes,
can you hear me?
yep.
Yes. So can I start? Can I say about my part? Yes. We are talking. We are talking about the origins, relation between science and religion. So from my own religion, Islam, I can see in the origin there is differences between the origin. In the science, it says chimpanzee, man created. We all know from science perspective. But in our religious views from Islam, we know that there is a man who there is a man, and from this man are, there is a man and woman. So from them we have created with the time, they produces another man and woman, girls, and there was the there was a matrimonial relation, and again there was other person. So in the
Okay.
other point, we can see in the hypothesis, science gives hypothesis on their beliefs. But in the religion, we believe on our own belief. We didn't see that we have born, but we don't know about our before we have came in the earth. We didn't see our mother and father. But after burning, we believe that she is my mother and she is my father. It's a belief from my own. Did you get my point, Professor? Professor?
Not really, but that's okay. I mean, my job is just to try and get that what we're working on is how to synthesize, right? So the reason you all are here at liberal arts school is you want to develop your humanity, right? And so you want to be fully human. Now, the problem with religions is that on the one hand, they teach they can be read as very humanizing and very consistent with human flourishing, but they also can be used as a weapon, where somebody's Christian and somebody's Muslim, and that creates animosity between people. So religion is a powerful tool, and it can be very anti-science, or it can be consistent with science. But this class is going to sort of blow it out of the water, because it's going to start with a goddess rather than a god. And it's going to also start with a kind of creative energy, right? But the creative energy is just personified in the Earth Mother, right? So the universe on the goddess view is that there was just this goddess, and she evolved, right? Off of her sprang Athena, Artemis. All these other goddesses are really extensions of her. And so the analogy would be like the Big Bang in the universe. The universe is constantly expanding. And so that can be perceived as this goddess of the universe. So the only reason, to me, it doesn't matter, right? Ever since I was 8 years old, I thought the word God referred to energy. And that's what Hindus and Buddhists tend to think also. So, I want you to get that sense of how are you going to incorporate this in your life's journey, right? So each of you could come to different conclusions. Each of you will work it out. I actually didn't think that there was this God in the sky that was male that was ever going to wound me. But actually, after all the other wounding I got into, I did start to feel like there was this God who was telling me, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And so I knew that that was just a function of living in this culture where there is this all-powerful God, and the culture is infiltrated with sexism. So so it's just, each of you just works things out. That's all. You work it out in your own mind. But I will say, as a philosopher, I don't think you get to criticize somebody else for their doctrine, right? I don't want religion used as a weapon. You know, nobody is morally superior than another person because of some doctrine that they have. Not even if it's secular humanism, because secular humanists can say, well, we're superior because we're based on science, not religion, you know? So any kind of self-righteousness because of a set of words that you accept, that doesn't go over in philosophy very well. But mainly we're a group of women, and we ought to support each other. And we ought to be pretty careful not to let religion pit women against each other, right? Because it has been used that way. And so the other thing I want to bring up is that all of your lives are going to be more complex than women in the past, the women you know. So what you really need to find is you need to find women's history. That's what's been going on. There've been a lot of women historians who are bringing into public, you know, they're writing books about all these women who have been silenced, right? So we want to expand our idea of human history, and each of you also expands your idea of your country's history by finding women, right? Prominent women, either from the past or the present. And those would be your role models, right? Aspiration. So another thing I realized growing up is I had always identified with men in various books because the men were the serious ones. And so when I actually went through motherhood, I didn't have any role models. I didn't know any women who stories about women juggling family and careers, getting PhDs or getting medical degrees or legal degrees. Like there weren't any stories like that. And so you're gonna, you benefit from what women have done before you, but also you're part of this process. I had a student, I want them to find poetry by women in their countries. So the one woman from Bangladesh says, I can't find any poetry by women from Bangladesh or whatever country it was. And so I said, okay, your generation is going to be part of this huge expansion of culture, so that by the time you're mid-age, there'll be lots of them and they'll be accessible. So the internet gives us access to a lot of information, but there definitely are a whole lot of gaps in there. And so that's what we're part of this process of making women's experience visible and also not silenced, giving women a voice to speak. So that's always really fascinating to me when students bring examples. Another issue, I have 10 minutes and I will spend a few minutes talking about the next assignment, right? The assignment for next time. But let's see. I wanted to say, yeah. One other issue is tragedy that you find a lot in Greek poetry, is that people have good intentions, but they make the wrong judgment. And that is important to think about that, because for example, Rossi was talking about divorce, right? Any divorce, at least one of the people in the marriage is a tragic character because they thought it was a good relationship, right? So they made a mistake in judgment. Maybe they misjudged a character. Maybe, you know, they were forced into it, but we all make mistakes. Like I've made a lot of tragic mistakes, I can tell you. As a matter of fact, for a while I wrote like 6 or 7 books on tragedy, and I was getting so depressed. But it got to the point where it was sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Just about everything I did was well-intentioned, but not necessarily the best thing. So I don't write about that. I'm so tired of that. But that's another thing that should expand your mind about your idea of good and evil, is that you can sincerely believe something is best and be really wrong. And then you have to self-correct and figure out, okay, where did I go wrong? How can I learn from my mistakes? And how can I try not to make the mistake again? And sometimes that's just the voice you have inside of you, but that voice inside of you is a function of people around you. And so I think having friends, having people to talk to is really important for keeping perspective on things. Somebody can tell you, no, you know, you blame yourself too much, or someone can tell you, you're blaming the other person too much. Those things are really hard. And so all of that is just how you learn, right? How to live. And we all teach each other how to live. So for next time, I want you by Friday, and it would be Friday, let's see, the Bangladesh are ahead. So Friday at 6 p.m. Bangladesh, and Friday at noon American time, to have posted your document, one document on 2 days. So after this class is over, you write, you know, you have your things you brought to class, you have something you learned during class, and then you have your final takeaway, like, what were the main points I got from this class? And then next week, I will post on each of the Google Classroom sites. I will post the assignment for both days, and I will post the assignment that you post. So you'll get it in the reverse order, right? You'll get assignment number 2 in your stream, and then you'll get readings for Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you'll get readings for Sunday, Monday. So sometimes students would accidentally read for the second day because it comes first on the post. So make sure you remember to go down to the post for the first day of the week. On Sunday, Monday, we're going to talk about Crete, the culture of Crete, and it's the integration of nature and culture. And so this is really what we need to get back to. By the time you're my age, either our societies will be sustainable or we'll all be dead. I've followed this for 50 years and it's not pretty. If put it this way, it'll be a very radically different climate that we'll live in. So the fact that we need to have a sustainable society, we need to re-envision society, right? We need to get a different vision in our head of what culture is and its relation to nature. And I don't think you need a lot of evidence to know that right now culture is at war against nature. But one time I was at the laundromat and the TV was on and it was talking about climate change. And I thought, wow, this is great because there's so much denial in my country because people who pay for the political campaigns insist that climate change is denied because they are, no, it's 125 to 150 words for each class, right? That's what it says on the syllabus. But anyway, so I was listening to the scientists talking about climate change, and then the person running the program said, nature is at war against us. We have to declare war on nature. Nature is out to get us. It's like, what? That's so gendered, right? No, that is not true. We have been destroying nature. Nature is wounded and she's just trying to heal herself. So she's trying to heal herself. So we should help her. Do you understand that different way of envisioning what's around you is so profound? Does everybody understand that? I mean, it sounds crazy loopy, right? But every one of you goes outside. Do you think of nature as healing herself, or do you think of nature as at war against us? Boy, that makes a lot of difference. So I will talk about this Minoan culture, where culture and nature were integrated. And then I have you reading these stories about the goddesses, their life trajectory before patriarchy took over. And I hope it'll trigger your imagination and you'll have a reaction. So just the post should end with your reflections on today. And then you start a new post for the next week where you take some notes if you want. I don't need to have your notes, but then your 3 main questions or issues that you want to bring up. So I hope, that you like the reading. Any other questions? I do have the word count.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Professor, I have a question. Like, I didn't clear out the assignment. Like, the thing we have to do, like, what we thought up before the class, and we got to learn from this class. We have to like write a paper on that.
Yes, here's the class process. Okay, here's the process.
Okay.
Before class, and this is one of the documents, write out 3 questions or comments. I will begin with a quick overview of how it fits into the class. Then I'll break you into groups. Then you designate who's going to report. This rotates so everyone discusses, everyone presents at the same time. Take notes of what the others say. We get back into the larger group. After class, you write your reflections, 125 words at least for each day, okay? Use 1 Word document for each week. Make clear when the first day ends and the next one begins. Post it on your Google Drive. Actually, it's not turn it in, sorry. I was able to do the Google Classroom. So post it on Google Classroom. That's the time that they're due. The grades are mostly based on the quality of your ideas. For AUW, the English, right, is different. I won't grade your English as heavily if you're not a native English speaker. And then I have the research paper and these other papers. You do have to work on your English more, but I'll help you out with that. And you may go to the writing centers in either of your schools. Okay, is that?
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah,
Thank you. I
okay.
got it.
Okay. I hope that kind of takes care of it. I have taught long enough so that I know that, I hope that's enough details, but if not, you can always email me, and you remember the 12-hour difference. So the window is right at this time of day, which is morning for you, evening for me. Okay. I do have to, we have 1 minute. Any other questions?
Professor, I still haven't been added to Google Classroom, so can you double check again?
Okay.
And
Well,
also,
May,
yeah,
actually,
and
I have that I invited you, but you haven't.
Yeah, I haven't received any invitation actually. I know it might be technical issues, so actually I send you another mail to show
Okay.
you an alternative way to add people if they don't receive mail. So please check it.
So you're going to send me another email and show
No,
me how I could invite you again?
I already sent it, but you
Okay.
haven't replied, so just check
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a few students that haven't responded to the invitation yet. And I took note of that. Tamana, Sadaf, no, wait. Anyway, Makrua, okay. So please check and make sure. There were just about 4 students. All right, anything else?
Professor, do you post everything on Google Classroom or also by email as well?
Professor,
Well, I post everything on Google Classroom except I invite you on this other site, my personal email, because those, yeah, I should post everything. I'll just post it twice.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Anything else? All right, so have a nice 5 days. And no, it's 125 words for each day, each reflection, right? You can, and that's not
So
125 words total. That's after you have your 3 points and your point in the class. Just the
So
reflection part.
there would be 2 reflections, right?
2
For both.
reflections, 1 for each day, yes. Okay? All right. And all of the grade for all of them.
Thank you, Professor.
Oh, sure. The grade for
have a
all
nice weekend,
together.
Professor.
Oh, sure. Yes, it just in the reflections is 100. You should read the handout. Just read the handout that says class process. It says it all in there. Okay, that's it. And I will wait, right? I'll let you go, but if anybody wants to hang out and talk to me more, ask questions, I'm here for another as long as you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you for
Professor.
taking my class.
Yes, thank you, Professor.
Take care, Professor. Have a nice weekend.
You too. Fahima, do you have your hand raised? Okay.
Professor, I had a question.
Okay.
So this is my first class. I mean, I joined from today, so I missed the first class. Is there any way I can get the recording of the class?
Yeah, it's there. Let's see. Where did I post it? I posted it on the Google Drive actually of this. Oh boy. I'll
I
send you.
mean, I think, yeah, I need invitation for that as well. Is it open?
Well, I think
I mean,
if,
I didn't get any
no, I think
notification.
if you just go to the Gmail, that the invitation, the Zoom invitation, you just go to
No,
the,
actually, I didn't get any mail from you. Like today, I joined the class. I didn't even know this ID. I took it from one of my friend and also the password from him, her
okay,
also.
well, I thought you were on the list of people that got it. So I will
Can you
try.
please check?
I'll check it because I went down and I looked, I looked at this list of the goddesses and contact list. And every name was on it, but I will check again, something screwed up. So I'll check again. All right. Thanks. Thank you for getting on. Thank you for managing.
Thanks. Yeah, actually, I just because for writing the reflection, I need to know what you thought about in the first class. That's why.
Yep. Okay. Let me just write here that I have to respond to May's email. I have to write a couple notes to myself. All right. So if you look, let's see. I think you can just say you weren't in class the first day. It's fine.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not. You won't be penalized for that.
Thank you so much.
Sure, of course. Nahida, did you have something? Okay. Alicia.
Yeah, I was just gonna let you know, I did not receive any type of email invitation tonight. Once again, all I did was log on to Zoom and it automatically dials me up whenever, which is fine. I'll just continue to do that. I just wanted you to be aware that I'm having to log into Zoom just in case somebody else is having the same problem. Maybe you can tell those who aren't getting email invitations to log into their Zoom account, because once I do that, it calls me up when it's time for the meeting.
Okay. Okay, I will, I'll check my contact list again, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm getting the other things from you. So it's just the invitation emails. Like I said, you don't necessarily have to do anything to fix that issue for me because I don't have any problem getting onto the class.
That's okay, though. I mean, I appreciate that. I will write that in the email. And I also have to write that I did post. Oh, I've got to stop recording this. Wait a sec. Yeah, just a sec. Stop recording.